Welcome to the Sacred Stream Radio Podcast, brought to you by the Foundation of the Sacred Stream and Red Cow Productions. I'm your host, Laura Chandler. In this episode, I'm joined by my friend, Joanna Adler, licensed clinical psychologist, depth hypnosis practitioner, and executive coach, for a rich and insightful conversation on the wisdom of the body. Together, we explore how the body stores information, including trauma, and how learning to truly listen to its signals can open the door to profound healing. Joanna brings a unique blend of clinical expertise and depth-oriented healing practice. She teaches classes in depth hypnosis and coming to peace at the Sacred Stream, and is co-author of the pilot study, Using Depth Hypnosis to Treat Mood Disorders and Raise Well-Being. She'll also be offering a new live stream class through the Sacred Stream, Somatic Wisdom as a Path of Inner Awakening. So join me now as we cruise into the wisdom of the body. Welcome, Joanna.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, I've been excited to talk to you about this work and about your upcoming class. So that's quite a concept, somatic wisdom as a path of inner awakening. Can you kind of tell us what that means?
Yes, absolutely. So, I think, we have a whole number of classes here at Sacred Stream that really sit into this empowered living area of study. We look at conflict in the coming to peace class. We look at parenting in the conscious parenting class. We look at tracking spirit in the birth environment. We look at grief and loss. All these places that are so important to understand in terms of what our conscious and ordinary lives bring us in terms of understanding of ourselves and understanding of our path in the world. And one of the places that has been an incredible teacher for me is the understanding of the body. Over the last 30 years, I have really studied on all the levels, including with my own body, this understanding of what is somatic wisdom and how do we understand that. So the body is this incredible organism that is communicating with us on a moment-by-moment basis. It's exquisitely sensitive to the environment, to any toxins we're around, to nutritious experiences and experience in the wilderness, to the loving experiences we have or the traumatic experiences we have. And the body is really a record keeper in a certain way. It's both a record keeper and expresses its experience. So we are going to be looking in this class at understanding those communications. So the somatic wisdom is this access to what the body holds, what the body knows, what it may know on the surface and may express in a physical symptom or in a sensation, and what's below that, with that physical symptom or sensation at the top, the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. And we're going to be looking at how do we begin to access and understand the communication that the body is offering us so that we can we can look at how we might begin to unwind some of those places that are struggling and that present through symptoms, through sensations, through physical experiences, both comfortable and uncomfortable. So there's a long introduction, but that's that's what I mean when we're talking about somatic wisdom. It's that depth of knowledge that the body holds about our experiences over time.
Yeah, and you have explained this, and maybe just for folks who are not familiar with the term somatic, like what does somatic mean? Can you just explain that a little bit?
Oh, sure. Somatic is just the physical experience of the body. The soma is the body in Greek, I believe. And so we're looking at the experience in the body on all different levels when we're talking about somatic wisdom.
Yeah, very helpful. Now we have somatic therapists, somatic therapy, like all this stuff. But like you and I have been around a little while, and we both have been depth hypnosis practitioners for going on a couple of decades. So we've been working somatically for a long time. And it's such an important and rich way to work with, like, working with the body in that way that you're talking about. So yeah, let's go a little deeper on what people can expect if they take the class.
Yeah. So we are going to be using a variety of processes that come out of depth hypnosis spiritual counseling.
Mm.
Uh, and depth hypnosis spiritual counseling is the counseling model that Isa Gucciardi created many a moon ago. And it's a really potent and beautiful counseling model. So in depth hypnosis, we're using hypnotherapy as a front door. We are using Buddhist psychology to help us, understand a spiritual path, to understand the ethics of a spiritual path, and help us hold structure. And we're using the catalytic processes that we know from applied shamanism, which is another modality that Isa created, and we're working with the engine of energy medicine to help us, move effectively and efficiently into somebody and gently into somebody's world to help them understand what's going on and help them begin to unwind any things that are not serving them. So that's depth hypnosis spiritual counseling. So we're going to be using techniques from depth hypnosis spiritual counseling to help us move into understanding our somatic experience, our physical, our body experience, and what we find might be telling us about the state of affairs in our broader system on the not just the physical level, but the emotional level, the mental level, and the spiritual level. We're going to be looking at things like regulation. We're going to be looking at how we begin to calm the nervous system, and we're going to be looking at using the altered state just as a beginning to befriend our body. So many people, I was just talking to somebody yesterday, actually, who was talking about a client of theirs, and that client had a really difficult neuroimmune disease for over a decade. And her experience was being at war with her body.
Mm-hmm.
She was just constantly at war. And, we get these, we have a difficult experience, and then we get these layers of reaction to the experience, right? So this woman, one of the layers of reaction to all the pain that she had was to be at war with it, right? To have hatred, have anger about it, right? So, that kind of layer cake of things that starts to develop around a symptom is also part of what we will be looking at, right? Starting with, oh gosh, how can I come with some gentleness and some love to what's going on here?
So helpful. And it's almost like the somatic part is allowing yourself to learn the language of your body.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's almost, it's a whole, we talk about that with dreams, that dreams are its own language, or that in the shamanic meditation called the journey, right? What the journey often presents within its own language. The body has its own language. And I would also say that each person's body has its own language.
Yeah.
And so that process of really learning, what is this telling me? What is this saying to me? What am I needing? What is this part of me needing or expressing is really key to all healing.
Yeah, learning to listen. It's not our common state. I think we're often in our heads. We're thinking about things and we're problem solving, like, oh, I've got this pain. What doctor do I need to see? What medication do I need to take? Right. but it's not so much like, what is my body telling me? What is it showing me? And yet there's so much information there that's remarkable.
And medical doctors have their place and incredibly helpful, and thank goodness we have them.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be careful nowadays to not only follow that model of, oh, I have a symptom, I better find a medication to suppress it.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? We have to listen in order to allow something to unwind. Otherwise, we end up with more and more issues. Not always, but often.
Yeah, and this kind of comes back to this idea of the mind-body connection and what we talk a lot about in depth hypnosis, and not only in depth hypnosis. I think we're fortunate that culturally we've sort of arrived more at the understanding or ability to consider that there are these levels on which healing occurs. But in depth hypnosis, we're always operating from that idea that there's a physical level, an emotional level, a mental level, spiritual level. You could have an issue that's presenting at one level, and it kind of makes its way through all the way to the physical level. So, or if we have a physical injury, like let's say, a broken leg in a car accident, we also have the spirit that needs to be treated, the spirit that's been injured, right? Like when we've been in shock or something like that. So it's a complex and really beautiful system. And what you're offering in the class is another way, and in a focused way, of considering this and taking some time with it, and to learn some ways of listening to the body and learning the language of the body and finding out what's going on there.
That is exactly it. And it is, I find it endlessly fascinating how those layers relate to each other, right? And how that, a vulnerability that may have been created by a trauma, and, trauma is so ubiquitous these days.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. I think, our world may be more dysregulated now than it ever has been. We are all constantly being exposed to trauma and being met with the experience of having to figure out, what are we going to do in the face of this now? And what are we going to do in the face of that now? Right. And when you combine that with perhaps a long-term vulnerability of some kind in terms of a core belief you may have developed as a child, in terms of a lack of connection to spirit, right? Or a lack of an experience of loving kindness.
Yeah.
Not to mention layering in a toxin or an exposure to mold or a viral infection, or all those things that, on the physical level can feed on each other. And the vulnerabilities on the other's levels can leave us open to.
Yeah.
Right? All of a sudden we have such a complex structure happening inside a client. Mm-hmm. And what's so exciting about all of that to me is that we have the tools to unwind that. We have the tools to empower ourselves to the point where actually, I can have a little mold exposure now and I'm okay. For example,
Yeah.
Or it just can work from one level to the other. And it's so unique to each person, It's beautiful and fascinating.
Yeah. And I think this is particularly helpful for things like autoimmune diseases, things that are tricky for Western medicine or allopathic medicine, tricky just generally. You've had your own path to this work and to understanding how your physical body speaks to you and issues with that. Are you comfortable talking a little bit about your path to this work and how it talked to you? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So, I started studying this work almost a quarter century ago, many, many moons ago. And I started studying here at the Foundation of the Sacred Stream um, uh, as with and was brought in through my very last class in graduate school in my doctorate work. So my education has just continued in this beautiful way. But when I found this work, I had been living in a house that was full of mold. I had that initial mold exposure in that house when I was just in postpartum. We moved there about 2 months before I gave birth to my first child. And I had had a really difficult cascade of physical issues. What happens with mold exposure is it has to draw so much attention from your immune system that other invaders, other bugs can flourish. So, I ended up with Lyme disease, with Epstein-Barr flares, with SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. So there were multiple layers of things that really took me down, and I was really in a state of chronic fatigue for a long time. I honestly have no idea how I made it through graduate school with a baby and with all that. It was some dedicated willpower, really. But so that as I met this work, I had a lot of material to work with. Depth. And I was so grateful to find this work and begin to understand that I could begin to work with each of these physical experiences through depth hypnosis, through applied shamanism, and begin to understand how they had taken root. And, I definitely needed to work with functional medicine, naturopathic physicians. That was incredibly helpful and core part of my healing. But the energy medicine practices and the shamanic practices and the depth hypnosis practices were the key, and they catalyzed all of it. So, yeah, I'm eternally grateful to have found this work for myself, and then to have, been able to move forward and been able to help others for several days now with this work, right? And working from physical symptoms, helping people understand illness and chronic illness has really been a specialty of mine.
And you've experienced a profound change, right? Like in your symptoms and your experience. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, I experience my energy is pretty vital these days.
Yeah.
I do a lot in the world. I have very full days. I'm not exhausted the way I was for a long time. I still have some places where I have to be a little careful, but I'm really healthy today.
I'll say you're like a super athlete. Tell me how many miles you mountain bike.
Oh gosh. I honestly,
Yeah.
I just got my first mountain bike.
Oh, okay.
So I do a lot of hiking, and I've done a lot of road biking, right? A lot of road cycling.
How far do you road cycle?
Well,
30 miles?
when we're living in California, I, several times worked up to doing a century bike ride, which was a lot for me. It's not a lot for some people, but it was really a lot for me. But yeah, I love inhabiting a healthy body.
Mhm.
It's so much fun. I live in Telluride, Colorado now. I have the gorgeous San Juan Mountains all around. And so I love getting out to hike, to experience, to be in the trees. And, we have a ski area right here. So to be able to use your physical nature to move through nature.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most profound experiences there is for me. So, yeah. So, and I'm so grateful I have the strength and the stamina and the health now to be able to do all of that.
Yeah. And, I'm playing with you, but I'm not. It's like to illustrate, it's like, you just were talking about like chronic fatigue and Lyme disease, like all of these things that are really difficult to navigate and just leave people like lying on the sofa, giving up. And you road bike 25 miles, you downhill skied pretty serious ski runs, you cross country ski. You're incredibly active. You're more active than I am. So I'll say that. But for people to understand that, like, you have walked this path of like multiple health issues and come out the other side of it, putting your team together, medical doctors, naturopaths, other alternative healers, and also this method of working with your body and listening to your body and trying to understand what your body is going through and what it needs from you. It's like, it's amazing. And so there you are. You are walking, living proof. And we talked before the show started about a case study. You said, "Oh, I've got a couple of case studies." So I made you a case study, but maybe there's another one you'd like to share.
Another case study?
Yeah, I mean, I made you the case study and asked you.
Oh, yes, you did make me the case study. Okay.
But if you have another one that you think might be interesting for folks to hear about, because, I think that people, health, when you don't have your health, it's hard to motivate. It's hard on so many levels, and people can become depressed and give up hope. And I think you are a beacon for hope and like being able to shift experience. And it's not without its hard work. And it's not without its like tracking things down and trying things and, being willing to explore. But I think that it's important for people to hear these stories that things can shift and they do shift. And you said like energy medicine helps with that. It helps change things. And there are a lot of studies that have happened, peer-reviewed studies demonstrating how energy medicine, working on a subtle energy level and energetic level, can help. It's not instead of necessarily, but it can help. And especially with things where Western medicine is just like, when we don't know what this is, but try that. It becomes hey, we know how to fix a bone, but we don't really know how to fix Lyme disease. So here are some things that you can try, and it just becomes like a symptom, like whack-a-mole. And when you can kind of take some of your healing into your own hands, it's so powerful. And so that's why I think the case studies are important, and your story is so important.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm so happy to share it. And I just to follow up on what you just said, I think that people are lucky if they get a physician that says, I don't know what to do here, but let's try a few things, because there are also experiences that people have where physicians say, that's all in your head. That's there's no physical basis for that. Right. And it's because they don't understand. Right. Yeah. You don't have the education and experience sometimes. But there are more and more people being trained in the medical community and understanding more alternative methodologies, understanding that there are treatments for Lyme disease and in terms of herbals and other things, that there are places that we can go. Yeah. Okay. So I'll offer you a case study here. And this is actually from a session that I just had last week with a long-term client of mine. And this client is in her 20s. She had a very long-term history of anxiety, even bordering on some OCD kinds of things. And over the years that we've worked together, she's developed more resiliency. She's really, really began shifting her way in the world, feeling more calm, feeling more agency, right? Like she's doing well. And several weeks ago, she had she got confronted with a crisis in her family. And the crisis was that a very close cousin of hers had been in an accident. Mm-hmm. And and the accident was really scary, and there were broken bones and surgeries and all sorts of stuff. And my client was really connecting in with her cousin and resonating with her cousin. And what I didn't say about the anxiety for this person was that the anxiety tended to come because her boundaries were very porous in the world. And so she was feeling everything going on with everything else, everyone else. When the war started recently, she really had a hard time because she was imagining what people in the Middle East were experiencing, or watching the news, et cetera, and then really resonating with what people were experiencing. So there was this porousness and this way that she would take in and experience what others were experiencing. Okay. So she started doing this with her cousin. And the cousin had some suicidal ideation that was a longer term pattern, but that really came up around this. It was very, very painful for her. So this client came to me in a session and said, look, I'm having this strange experience where I'm having thoughts of hurting myself that I've never had before. Mm. So I brought her into an altered state. We did a depth hypnosis process to begin understanding where these thoughts were coming from within her. Okay. And what she realized these were her cousin's thoughts. They hers. And through the processes we have in depth hypnosis, she was able to give them back and to release them.
Yeah.
Now, the layer that I didn't quite add yet was that several weeks before, when the accident happened, within a day or two, my client developed a systemic yeast infection. Really intense. Sores on her tongue, huge sores on her tongue. It was really, really intense. She was really struggling. Like, her whole system shut down in relationship to, in her own way, in relationship to what had happened to the cousin. She had gone to her doctor. She had taken 3 rounds of medication for yeast. It really wasn't touching it. It really wasn't shifting. And we did the session that I just talked about. And the next day, she texted me and said, guess who's feeling better?
That's so great.
Right. So, I think the medication was important, but it's like her system was so shut down that her body wasn't able to receive the support of the treatment until this resonance, this kind of anti-life resonance, until she let that go. And then her body started rebounding the next day.
That's so remarkable. Yeah. Yeah. And it can be like that. There's so much wisdom in the body. I just can't say it enough. It's like, you can actually listen to your body and you can heal yourself. Yeah. And I don't want to proselytize, but that's really exciting. That's really
exciting. And, we're not the only ones here that are working with somatic, with the world. There's a lot of different places, there's a lot of different understanding about from somatic experiencing and, somatic psychotherapy. There's all sorts of things going on in the world that are wonderful. One of the things that I really appreciate, however, about what we're doing here is that we're understanding somatic experience as a spiritual path, right? That the understanding of the opening of painful experience and the healing of painful experience actually moves us into deeper connection with our true selves, with our Buddha nature, if we want to talk about that from Buddhist psychology point of view, and moves us towards the path of enlightenment. And to be able to go from, wow, I'm having this chronic pain, to, wow, this has catapulted me onto a spiritual path. And I'm moving towards wholeness in a way I never understood was possible, right? That's pretty unique, what we're doing, from what I can see.
Well, that's true. You've just peeled another layer of the onion. Do you want to talk a little more about what you see on that as the spiritual path, and how you experience it or see it in your clients?
Well, I guess one of the things that comes to mind right now is that the spiritual path gives us a meaning structure, gives us a way to understand what we're going through, gives us a way to understand that we are learning and growing through difficult experience and wonderful experience. And that helps us move more into a state of wholeness and ultimately into a state of enlightenment, right? The process of healing and retrieving life force, literally retrieving life force, moving from a state of fragmentation into a state of wholeness, or a state that is more coherent. Is really what we're looking at here, like this process of empowerment and agency, and but moving through that from a point of view of understanding compassion and equanimity and loving kindness as guides, as heal.
Yeah.
Right. It's a whole nother way of looking at it, right? It's not just, I want to feel better and I'm gonna, and then I don't care about the rest of the world, for example.
Yeah.
Towards being part of the generation of a more wholesome and more loving state of being, right, in our little worlds and then in our community, and may it spread and spread and spread.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the couple of points you made there that I'll follow up on. One is this idea of retrieving life force energy. That is something that I think is a bit unique to what we do. That in and of itself is a huge part of the healing mechanism for people, and they feel very different when they start doing those processes, and as you described, like kind of integrating and this, we're naturally whole, but we do have places where we fragment or cut off from ourselves, and being able to integrate into wholeness and know our own wholeness. And then another aspect where we were talking about this, what we're calling the spiritual aspect, and boy, that's a whole big topic. I'll have to come back, we'll talk about that. But this whole idea of like, what is spirituality? Like, so we're defining it for ourselves, but just in short, like as a being, we have a spirit. Whatever you believe, whatever, but we have something in us that needs tending, right? That's at least how I look at it. It's like there's, that little part of us that needs a little cozying and kindness, right? But where you described it, like we have the opportunity to look at, not just say, oh, we've had this thing happen to us, and this is, and then have our reactions to it. Oh, poor me, or, I'm so angry, or whatever it is, which all legitimate feelings that we can feel. But if we stay stuck there, we miss the opportunity. And this is what you were pointing to, the larger spiritual path, that by asking the question, what am I learning? What is this teaching me? We open up a whole field of experience and learning that becomes possible, and also makes it less personal. Obviously we are having an experience within ourselves and our bodies that may be difficult, but when we can look at it from this larger perspective, we have an opportunity, to be on a spiritual path, but also just to have a different frame for it, so that it's not all there is, and that we can, become a little more objective with it. It's just, it helps take us out of being steeped in that I am this thing and that's happening to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's incredibly helpful and important to depersonalize what's happening,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, first of all, I'm not the only one experiencing that. There's a lot of people that are experiencing this. And there's just so much to learn about how I am relating to
Yeah.
what's happening and how I can, where do I want to go with this? How my choices affect the larger whole, right? Or the small whole, right? If somebody else is having a hard time, I have a client right now that I'm really working in right in this place with, actually, who is this client is taking what's happening in her work environment more personally than you could ever imagine. And I've really been talking to her about, well, what if what this other person is doing isn't about you?
Yeah.
Yeah, what if it's just about them? Right? And if you take it in and make meaning that it's about you,
Mhm.
look how awful you feel. Look how victimized you feel. Look how small you feel.
Yeah.
Look how angry you are. When that person's just got their whole own thing going on over here. Right. And I know I'm taking this to a slightly different place from where you
That's
just,
fine.
but it's, this thing of what if what is happening is not actually about me personally as much as it is about my own learning, right?
Yeah.
My growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it gives you a place to focus and to work, so that you're not just steeped in that harmful state.
Yeah. And getting so reactive that you spiral yourself into, from your belief about what just happened and your emotional reaction to what just happened to you throw your back out because, for example, because you're so angry and throwing yourself around and right, like
Mhm.
there's so
Yeah.
much that can happen in a reactive spiral,
Yeah.
on all these different levels.
Yeah. And so in the class, Somatic Wisdom as a Path of Inner Awakening, I love that title. Do people are going to have the opportunity to get these new perspectives on what they're experiencing with illness or their bodies or, whatever, traumas that they've experienced. And also develop some tools for listening to what the body is trying to tell them.
Yes, absolutely. Right. We're going to be helping people understand that symptoms are not some problem with the body. They are a communication from the body,
Mm-hmm.
right? Symptoms are a way the body is trying to tell you, hey, I need some attention over here, right? On some level. And then we have to be curious, right? We have to lean in. We have to take space and stop scrolling and and be present in a focused way so that we can hear what the body is trying to tell us, right? The body's just bringing things forward so that we can create the conditions for healing.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. Well said. And so I'm so excited you're going to be doing this class. I'm so excited for the people who get to take the class, and they can learn more about it, the Sacred Stream, on the Sacred Stream calendar, and we'll have it linked to on the website, and then we'll have more information here also.
Yeah, great.
Joanna, thanks so much for taking some time out and coming on the show and talking about your experience and wisdom. And yeah, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's absolutely an honor.
Thanks for listening to the Sacred Stream radio podcast brought to you by the Foundation of the Sacred Stream and Red Cow Productions. You can download or subscribe to this podcast anywhere you get your podcasts or stream it on our website, sacredstream.org. You can also watch the podcast on the Sacred Stream YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. This is a very easy way to show your support and to help us reach more listeners. We're a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting consciousness on the planet and making programs like this one widely available and ad-free. If you'd like to support this podcast with a donation, you can do so on the website. It really helps, and we greatly appreciate it. Big thanks to all the folks who make this podcast happen, including our friends at Leadership Landing, Riverine, Ideas with Impact, and Zoo Labs. And thank you for listening. I hope you'll join me again next time in the stream.